Hello, and welcome to In the Light, Growing Your Soul with me, Anna Isabel. And my guest today is Reverend Stephanie Redfeather. Welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
It's a real joy, and I thought it might be nice to get to know you a little bit better, and have a look at your birth chart as well. So I think maybe before we do that, it might be nice if you just tell the audience a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I call myself a divine feminine change agent and champion of empaths because my life has really generated itself around those things. It's an interesting life story, how I got to where I am, but I'm a shamanic practitioner. I'm a shamanic minister. I'm an energy healer. I'm a, spiritual coach, all of those sorts of things. But my focus is really supporting empaths and sensitive souls on their path of ascension, because my belief is that empaths are here to help humanity ascend to the next level of consciousness. So that is the focus of my work. I do, workshops and programs. Of course, I have books and products, and I also work with clients one-on-one.
Well, see, as I'm listening to your job description, to put it in a very mundane way, right. I'm looking at your chart. And of course, the first thing that I notice is this North Node in Pisces in the 12th house, which is all about everything you've just said. So the North Node, in a sense, is our the description of our mission for this particular incarnation, and it's in Pisces, which is all about developing empathy to the point of connecting and becoming one with others. Mm-hmm. And most especially connecting with a sense of oneness. It's in the 12th house, which is like having Pisces squared, if you
right,
like.
in its natural home. Mm-hmm.
It's in its natural home very much, and it's again about what Jung would have called the collective unconscious. It's what we might call divinity. Some would call God. It's all things mystical, put it that way. Yes. It's about understanding that we are indeed spirit, and everything that entails. Mm-hmm. It's the quest for understanding that and developing that. So I was listening to you describing what you do and thinking, well, you're on track.
Thank you for that.
If you didn't already know it,
right.
on track. But there's more too. I think I'm looking at the fact that you're a Scorpio.
Mm-hmm. And I have 4 planets in Scorpio.
Yeah, you do. And 3 of them in the 8th house, which is again more Scorpio. So this is about not leaving any stone unturned. It's about being able to go into the depths. You know, sometimes Pisces can get lost in fantasy and delusion.
Yes.
But Scorpio delves into darkness. Trouble is, it can also get stuck there. So it needs to be able to resurrect, to transform. It's all about transformation. And I seem to remember in your description of what you do, that concept is in there somewhere.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and the shamanic, the fact that I'm drawn to the shamanic path and my master's and doctorate are in shamanic studies. Yeah, I mean, it's all about life force energy. I always joke that it's like, I'm not a, hey, let's talk about the weather person. I'm like, what makes you tick?
Yeah, I get that. Hypnotherapist and astrologer, I get that. Yeah, but I think the thing about Scorpio is it can be really blunt and really harsh at times, which is why sometimes it gets a bit of a bad rep. So, but
Intense, you know, Scorpio's very intense energy.
exactly, it is.
Mhm.
But you were born with the sun not far from Neptune. You also have it conjunct the sun, conjunct Mercury, which is why you are a communicator and a teacher and curious and all of those sort of agile mind type activities that go with it. But it's at a feeling level. You very much sense things. And I think that conjunction between the Sun and Neptune speaks volumes as well, because it's more of the Pisces 12th house stuff that we were talking about earlier. And why I think that's interesting also is because in actual fact, your moon is in Capricorn, not known for its
Touchy-feeliness.
yeah. I think, you know, it's almost like, and that brings in your south node in Virgo as well, because if the north is in Pisces, the south is always in the opposite sign, which is Virgo. And Virgo and Capricorn are very practical, very matter of fact, very evidence, you know, based. There isn't a great deal of, what's the word I want? It's not just about emotion. It's about sentimentality. There isn't a great deal of sentimentality there. In fact, there is none. There is none. And it's just this cool approach to problem solving. You know, if there's a problem, let's not discuss it till the nth degree. Let's fix it. Let's find the solution, which is a very good thing in a sense, because if you're there helping people, you're going to be interested in finding the solution. It's just that you have learned that there's more to the solution than just practical problem solving. There's something deeper that you have to go to, and that's the Scorpio and the Pisces that lead you in that direction. Is that making sense to you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm very familiar with this aspect of myself, and I've studied shamanic astrology, which has a slightly different interpretation of the signs, where they basically look at your moon as what you come here having a PhD in. And so, you know, I tell people it's like I can organize in my sleep, right? I can walk into chaos, snap my fingers, and create structure. Like that sort of thing is easy for me because that's what I come here having already mastered, if you will. So those parts serve me well, but in the, you know, as I started my spiritual awakening, those parts wanted to try and convince me that they were all that mattered, right? You know, the mental mind, left brain aspect, while my emotions were like, wait, what about us?
Exactly. In fact, that is the case. You know, it's you're the way that you approach astrology would also be called evolutionary astrology, which is about understanding what we come in with and what we are here to develop as a soul. And so yes, indeed, the moon is very much, it's instinctive because it's what you've come in with, as is the south node. And then the sun represents what we are here to develop, as as much as the north node also represents that. And there are echoes between the north node and your sun because of the sun Neptune conjunction that I talked about. So this is who you are and what you are about in terms of your work. Interestingly, I'm just going to add a little footnote to this, and that is that your midheaven, which is about vocation, is Capricorn, not something, you know, that you would associate with shamanic practices at first glance. Mm-hmm. However, what people forget is that Capricorn, its symbol, is the goat with the fish's tail. That's what a Capricorn actually is, which embodies, of course, the water element because of the fish's tail. And people forget this. They think of it exclusively as an earth sign because that's what it's the category it's been given. But a very long time ago, it would have been considered to have been an amphibious sign. And so this is important because it gives us an understanding of what Capricorn is trying to do. And it's really, I think, about integrating. It's the beginning of integrating earth and water, the incarnate soul moving towards becoming a new soul, because it's, you know, it's the third last sign from the zodiac, and you want to go through the whole zodiac to come back to the one at the end, which is Pisces, the dissolution of the self. But here we have the beginning of that with with Capricorn. So I think there is something here because what I love from my limited understanding of shamanism is that I see it as exactly that, the union between what's carnate, what's physical, and the spiritual. And that's what, because it's about that union. And I think actually, although we've just said that Capricorn has nothing to do with that, I think that there's an aspect of the higher side of Capricorn, which is all about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that perspective. And I did not know that about the tail of the fish. So I appreciate hearing that. You know, when I think about Capricorn in the midheaven position as well, you know, what I tune into is Capricorn is also the archetype of the healer, the teacher, the elder, you know, the ones kind of looking out for the 7 generations. And so I think, you know, there's that aspect of Capricorn that I think is very present in my life purpose, if you will.
And I'll add a little bit more to that, because the ruler of Capricorn is Saturn. Again, not known for being very touchy-feely. And it's in the sign of no nonsense Taurus, you know, so more earth again. But one of the signs most linked with the earth, the beauty of the earth, life and life force, is actually Taurus. And Saturn is what we work at. So there's something in the chart here that speaks of the need to work at understanding that life force of nature and do something that's constructive with it. Well, you know, that's what you do.
Yeah. And my husband's sun sign is a Taurus. So I think of him as my rock.
and you know, those of us who meditate and work with energy understand that in order to do that, we also have to be grounded. So it's very much that combination of earth and water there. We need grounding in order to be able to then let our spirit flow.
Yeah.
So now you are here because I have come across these beautiful things called the empath activation cards. Discover your cosmic purpose. And of course, I couldn't resist finding out more. And I have to tell you that I am not somebody who has a great deal of experience of oracle cards. And although I do have a tarot deck, which was given to me by a friend, every so often I dip into it and scream and then put them back. And then I think about it and meditate and go, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense, and it's not so scary. However, this is very, very different, and I absolutely love what you're doing with these cards. So I think I should be quiet and let you explain what they are.
Yeah. Well, you know, for those who may not know the difference, let me start with explaining the difference between tarot cards and oracle cards, because some, they're kind of interchangeable. I think of oracle cards as basically the biggest category, right? Or, oracle cards are divinatory tools, right? They're a way of divining information from spirit. Tarot is a specific type of oracle card, and tarot cards are kind of like playing cards, right? You open a deck of playing cards, you're always going to have hearts, clubs, diamonds, and spades. You're always going to have specific numbers, and the jack, queen, king, ace, etc. So tarot cards have a specific structure. So no matter what tarot deck you purchase, you're going to have essentially that same structure. Now, the interpretation might be a little different based on who wrote the deck. The artwork might be a little bit different. So tarot cards are kind of a specific subset of oracle cards in general. Oracle cards can be, any subject. I have probably 25 oracle decks. I love them. So I have some that are crystals and stones, and some that are messages from your angels, and a deck that's about the Egyptian pantheon of gods and goddesses, so it can be about any subject matter. And so with oracle cards, there's no right or wrong way to use them. It really is about your intention that is the most important thing. And so in the book that accompanies it, I do have a few layout options for people, but honestly, you can go online and search, oracle card layouts, and you have hundreds of different ones will come up for you. So, and you can make up your own. So you can just simply ask your guides, what do you want me to know today? What's your card for me, and pull a card. Or you might have a specific decision you're trying to make, and you lay out a spread, or maybe relationship issues, and you want to get some insight into that. So there's so many different ways to use this deck. But the big thing that I want to highlight is I knew when I wrote this that I wanted it to be more than just an oracle deck. And as I started to complete, I was getting towards the end of writing the messages and creating the art. There's 44 cards. They started organizing themselves into 4 sets of 11 cards. And what became clear is you can actually read through this book from front to back and use it as a self-guided initiation into the mysteries of higher consciousness. And so let me just, I want to quickly read the 4 chapters, for want of a better word. So the 4 paths is what these cards organize themselves into, and they're initiatory paths. And so the first one is healing, holing, and practices for embodiment. The second one is light body expansion and tools of mastery over your perception and experience. The third one is activating higher consciousness, the astral plane, and tools of multidimensionality. And the 4th path is cosmic mission, star relatives, and your power as co-creator with divinity. So you can tell just by listening to those words and feeling the energy of them that in the first path, it's more 3D, earth school, human kind of stuff. And as you move through the paths, it raises in frequency and broadens in perspective. And so this really is a very potent deck.
What I love about it is that I guess, and you explained beautifully the difference between oracle cards and tarot and what these are. And I really like that because, like, for instance, when people want an astrology reading, I sometimes get asked, will I do written ones? And I always say categorically, no. And the reason is that sometimes the symbolism can be very frightening, and it needs to be tempered with explanation. And also the consultation, I feel, is a sacred moment between me and the client in which something creative and wonderful evolves. And that, for me, is what happens when I pick up, or what doesn't happen when I pick up. And I was jokingly, because I love tarot, by the way. I don't want in any way to decry it, but what I am saying is that sometimes, in fact, often, when I pick a card, initially it's quite frightening, and I have to go away and digest the symbolism, whilst processing the trauma of what I've just picked up. Whereas this is different. It's different because it's not that it's not challenging, because it is, but it comes at me with not a sledgehammer, but a golden light, if you like. That's why I love that. And it's a much more gentle way of working, I feel, for me. So I think the other thing that I love about it, of course, is that you talk about it as helping you very much in the spirit of the work that I do, in identifying your cosmic mission, in an initiation. Now, actually, you mentioned initiation, and I think I'd like you to talk to us about what that is and what that means.
Yeah, absolutely. So an initiation is like a rite of passage. And oftentimes initiation comes to us without us calling it. You know what I mean? It's like initiation just shows up at our doorstep, and it's like, I'm here and I invite you to come with me, and you can make this easy or you can make this hard. Kind of like similar to death and rebirth cycles that we go through in our life, where it's much easier when we recognize it and learn to surrender. But one of the ways that I describe initiation is this way. If you're trying to make a decision, let's say you want to buy a car, you do a bunch of research, right? And you look up facts and figures, and you assess what you need for yourself and what features you need it to have. You go test drive, and then you make the decision. Now take that series and flip it around, and that's initiation, where basically you step through the portal and then the rest of the information becomes known to you, right? So initiation is like, come into this new way of being, come into this learning phase, step through this portal. But the access key is faith and trust. Step through this portal and trust, not knowing what's on the other side, trusting and having faith that it will unfold. And then, it's like the experiential process that you go through becomes tutelage. It becomes wisdom. It takes you through whatever experiences, for whatever this rite of passage is for you in your life. So let me just stop there and see how that's landing for you.
Yeah, so many thoughts. The first is that we have lost many of our rites of passage in the West. And the one I think that was most common to people was marriage, where that was a rite of passage into adulthood. We've lost so many. Okay, maybe an 18th birthday party or a 21st birthday party, but that very often just turns into a drunken affair. There isn't that sense of ceremony. And I think it's very important, because there are moments in life where I feel the reason the rites of passage are important is because these are moments when we become almost infants again. They're moments when something big and new is about to happen, and we're about to embark on a new journey, which means we are in that place of being the innocent, the and vulnerable again. And I think that a rite of passage prepares us for that, because it acknowledges that that is where we are. And when we don't have that, it's almost as though we go stumbling blindly into something and then go, oh, where am I? What happened? Because nobody has told you or told us, you know, if you go in that direction over there, that's a portal that you're about to enter. And it's called adulthood, just for example. That's called adulthood. And you know what? It's a bit tricky to navigate. You know, you're going to meet all sorts when you go through that portal. Okay. So let's do a little bit of prep so that when you go in, you've got something to go in with. And by the way, a university degree is not enough.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to prepare you for it. So this is what I feel. Okay, so we might have a university degree, which, you know, at that point we graduate, and there is a sense of ceremony, but that's about completing something.
Mm-hmm.
That's about completing something. It's not about what comes after. And I think that's why I love this idea of initiation. We'll, you know, we go through some obvious ones like that, but we go through many in our lifetimes. And so the idea that you could be going through an internal process of initiation to prepare you for something new as a therapist is very exciting for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm another way I think of it is inviting you into the next level of yourself, right? The next octave of your expression. And initiation, for the most part, is not about left brain stuff. It's not about the intellect. It is about the experiential process. It is first and foremost about the body felt sense. And, you know, wisdom, knowledge is information. Wisdom is the grounded, embodied synthesis of information plus sensory input plus, you know, all of these other things. And so initiation is about it's definitely it can be considered a learning, but it's not like, you know, university, like you say. Death can be an initiation, right? When we lose a loved one. Getting married can be an initiation, a new job, you know, an identity crisis in our own selves. There's many things that can serve that way. And so, you know, one of the things I've found, especially trying to be a conscious human, is when we can recognize the signs that, we're being presented with an initiation, or, I'm being presented with a death and rebirth, right? A symbolic or psychic death and rebirth. When we can engage with these energies consciously, we're going to move through them with much more grace. And I know that one for a fact, because when my spiritual awakening began, I went kicking and screaming. You know, with all those planets in Scorpio, I have a very strong will. So, you know, my heels were getting drug across the floor, you know, getting drug into my, you know, spiritual initiation. And it was very challenging for me, which is part of what led me to do what I do, because my heart realized this call to help other people through their initiations, and to give them the tools and the understanding so they can move through it with more grace.
I love that. And I think the other thing that I really like, of course, is the link between body and spirit, which brings us to 3D versus 5D. And it would be really nice if you could explain that a little bit.
Yeah. One of my favorite quotes is that we are not spiritual. We are, let me get it right. We are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. And a number of years ago, I had a really incredible experience that added in embodiment as a major pillar of the work that I do. And my belief is, because let me back up and say this, in many, many religious and spiritual traditions, if you study their doctrine and their philosophy, there's this focus on the upward direction of energy. Anna Dea Judith, who's an expert in the chakra system, says there's two directions. There's the manifesting channel, which goes down, the liberating channel, which goes up. And so many of these focus on leaving the body, if you will, transcending the emotions. And some of them have been interpreted, like different elements of Christianity and other religions, making the body bad, right? It's sinful, it's dirty, it's something to be overcome, or it's something to be suppressed. And we want to go in this upward direction, right? This is all the mental, the head, the masculine energies. Well, why in the world would we choose to come into a body in the first place, right? If we come to this earth school, there's a reason, there's something that we can get by being in a body that we can't get. If the point is just to transcend and leave the body, why did we come into a body in the first place? And so there's this exquisite experience that's available to us if we can fully inhabit ourselves. And my belief is that it's not about leaving body to experience transcendence. It's about bringing spirit all the way down into the body and fully embracing it and fully inhabiting ourselves and being heaven on earth, if you will.
I really love that. I think that it can only be that way, because otherwise, as you put it so beautifully, why would we be here? If it was about decrying this existence, why would we be here? So that means then that what you're doing, and what I'm hoping lots of people are doing, is accessing that energy of the soul more fully within us. And of course, there are many reasons why we're not doing that. What do you feel is the future in terms of our ability as a species to do this?
Well, collectively, we are in a massive initiation. And it's a major choice point for humanity, for our civilization, for consciousness of where we're headed. I would say that spiritual bypass is an epidemic right now, and the pandemic has probably compounded that, right? Because it has been so painful for many people to live their lives, to be in their body, to deal with the limitations, to deal with everything from inflation to family members dying, to losing their job, to losing their home. And so, it's a natural human coping mechanism to leave our body, right? To kind of pull up our roots, because the first chakra, the second chakra, the third chakra, those are the denser, energy centers. They vibrate at a lower rate, right? For something to come into form from the spirit world, it has to lower in vibration until it becomes physical matter. So down here is the heavier, denser stuff, a lot of the trauma, the unhealed wounds. And why wouldn't we just go, yeah, screw that. I'm gonna live up here. and so, it's not a judgment. Like I said, it's a coping mechanism, right? It's something that we employ to help us get through difficult times. But where it becomes an issue is when that coping mechanism becomes a way of life, and we stay disembodied, and we stay in spiritual bypass. And sometimes spiritual bypass is also described as, there are some spiritual circles where it's like, we just want to be happy. We're going to speak affirmations. No, we don't want your negative energy. We don't know, you can't be angry, so it's almost like like this lacquered, sugary sweet version of spirituality that completely denies. Exactly.
Denial. And it's the same thing that we had with traditional religions a denial again.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And so, you know, I'm not saying my way is the only way, but what has worked for me and what, you know, I think why other people are attracted to what I do is realizing that to get to this place of a higher vibration, of connection to spirit, of becoming more whole, of feeling our soul, is we got to work through the human gunk, right? The woundings, the traumas, the unhealed stuff, because that, it's kind of like an energetic hardening of the arteries if we don't deal with that. It's affecting us whether we know it is or not. And so it is challenging. It takes courage. It doesn't feel good. It's not easy all the time. But in our shadow, you know, again, referring to Jung, that's where the gold is, right? When we can have the courage to look down in the shadow at the things that are repressed, that we don't want to admit, that we've denied, that we've pretended aren't there. That is where the gold is. And that is where the key in being whole is, because as long as we stay fractured, we're going to feel fragmented.
And that's why I do love your cards, because I believe that they are a beautiful tool to help us move forward. I think that, you know, in the same way that I say that I don't do readings that are just written because I want to be able to help people through the symbolism, etc. I now realize that if I'm going to have a tarot reading, I'd like somebody to do it for me, so that I have somebody holding my hand through what that means. But what I love about your cards is that I think this is something that helps us to tap in to ourselves on our own, and bring out something that's very special. And so for that, I thank you.
Thank you. It means a lot.
And so if people, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be putting a link so that people can get the cards on the description box. But if they wanted to contact you, Stephanie, how would they do that?
Yeah, the best way is through my website, which is bluestartemple.org. And if you're on my homepage, I have a free gift available for everyone that's called 11 self-care must-haves for empaths, lightworkers, starseeds, and way showers. And so that's a free gift for anyone who goes there. You know, the best way to stay in touch with me and what I have available and what's going on is through my mailing list. And so that's, yeah.
Fantastic. I'll be sure to put that on the description box as well. Stephanie, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. I loved this conversation.
Next time, we're going to be looking at, well, I would say we're almost into the world of Indiana Jones, looking at the Chintamani crystal. Until then, goodbye.